Mortal Kombat 1, the poorly named newest entry in the long-running classic fighting game series that sold like hotcakes on release. Back in September of last year, this instant hit was a title that the world couldn't stop talking about, thus translating into quick sales and people clamouring to play this gory game. While this was certainly the case, you might have noticed that interest in this one has dropped off at an incredible pace. With only months after this game's release, it's seeming like no one cares about this title anymore. So with all of that said, what in the Earth realm is going on here? Hello ladies and gentlemen, Big Daddy Top Hat here. This is why Mortal Kombat 1 is in trouble. Yeah!
Get over here!
Fighting games, fighting games, fighting games. We have seen some huge releases lately, with Street Fighter 6, Mortal Kombat 1 and Tekken 8 all arriving on the scene in fairly quick succession. Out of these entries, Tekken 8 is currently the one that no one will shut up about, which helped get me thinking about Street Fighter 6 and the lack of publicity, appreciation and attention it is getting at present. In fact, earlier this week I uploaded a video titled Street Fighter 6 is in trouble, which included myself going over the various reasons as to why the casual market appears to have quickly lost interest in this game, with many early adopters no longer playing this one at all. Not ideal really for Capcom when they have continuously labelled it as a service game, a title that they expect players to keep going back to, making new in-game purchases to extract maximum profit from the game. With many enjoying this upload and a lot of people agreeing with the issues I raised, lots of people would still point out that the situation that Mortal Kombat 1 is in being even worse, with every problem Street Fighter 6 is currently facing being magnified in the case of a NetherRealm Studios American produced game multiple times over. So with that said, let's discuss Mortal Kombat 1's current lack of popularity and the crazy statistics that show that a far greater number of players have kicked this one to the curb comparatively to Street Fighter 6. In order to do this, we first have to look at what we know about the sales of this video game. According to Capcom Corporate on the investor relations section of their website, they have recently reported that as of January 2024, that they have sold over 3 million units worldwide. Interestingly though, it appears that Mortal Kombat 1 may have achieved even greater sales numbers, or matched Street Fighter 6 at the very least. During a Warner Bros. Discovery earnings call back in November, it would be disclosed that Mortal Kombat 1 had already sold close to 3 million units, despite only seeing release 6 weeks prior to this call being made. This provides evidence that potentially far more people rushed to play Mortal Kombat 1 than Street Fighter 6, which makes the other stats we are about to look at even more alarming, especially considering this is meant to be a service game. To give us an idea on the ongoing interest around these games, a good indicator we can analyse are the Steam statistics. At its all-time peak around its launch window, an incredible 70,573 players were enjoying Street Fighter 6 concurrently, whereas by nearly only a third of that number played Mortal Kombat 1 concurrently, resulting in a much more humble 26,576 peak. What makes this all the more crazy is that the sales figures suggest that way more people purchased Mortal Kombat 1 at launch. But it doesn't seem that the game's audience who purchased this game necessarily had much interest in actually playing it. The difference between the figures of those who enjoy the two games has only gotten greater as time has progressed, even though Street Fighter 6 is 3 months older of the two. At the time of writing, currently over 10 times as many people are opting to play Street Fighter 6 as they are Mortal Kombat. That's right, you heard me. 10 times the amount of people are opting to play one of these games over the other, even though the one less people are playing potentially sold better. In the previous 24 hours, Street Fighter has hit a 19,121 person peak, with Mortal Kombat achieving only an embarrassing 1,721 peak. As for those playing right at the moment of me saying this, 13,447 people are playing Street Fighter 6 right now, with only 1,273 playing Mortal Kombat. Now here's where it gets even more insane. Let's cover the number of people interested in watching other people play these games. We currently have 15,000 people watching people playing Street Fighter 6 on Twitch right now, with a dreadful 219 people watching Mortal Kombat 1. Even I've hit better streaming numbers than that in the past, and I'm not even a streamer. People really don't give a crap anymore about this game, which raises the question, why? Well, personally, I believe there is a whole multitude of reasons behind this consumer behaviour. So let me give you some of my honest conjecture. First and foremost, let's address the reasoning behind why people chose to play and become fans of these franchises in the first place. Street Fighter appreciation would first blow up after the success of Street Fighter 2, the first ever fighting game to feature a large, interesting character roster and a deep and innovative competitive play system. This versus game became popular based on these core facets, whereas Mortal Kombat is a franchise that would be attention grabbing for different reasons. Sure, it features these other aspects to varying degrees, but the key reason people wanted to, and still want to play Mortal Kombat is for the gory spectacle of the game's fatality system. In my opinion, it was this element that made the game sell upon its debut in 1992, with not a great deal changing in that regard in 2023. This key feature of the series has led to varying degrees of shock, awe, intrigue, outrage and disgust, with the controversies it has contributed to, aiding Mortal Kombat in marketing itself. As great as this has always been for Mortal Kombat, many gamers out there only feel the need to experience these gore fests once or twice, and once they've seen them, the novelty wears off and their interest in the game wanes. In fact, I would go as far to say is that most people who buy Mortal Kombat aren't big fans of fighting games in the first place, so it's not surprising they abandon these titles so swiftly after their initial purchase. They're here for a one-off laugh at some gore, and then they're off. With Street Fighter on the other hand, a franchise which to some degree has continued to zero in on its competitive elements over the years, it's not surprising really that games in this series tend to hold players' focuses for longer and keep them coming back for more. The core reason as to why people buy both of these games is now so different to begin with. The Steam stats certainly appear to suggest that people are way more into playing Street Fighter than playing Mortal Kombat, even if the gap on consoles might be a little closer. As, if I'm honest, I guess fewer people who own Mortal Kombat know how to game on a PC in the first place. By the way, I realise some might infer that I'm taking a massive steaming dump on Mortal Kombat's disengaged audience right now. But then again, Vince McMahon is a billionaire and took steaming dumps on people his whole career, and that never seemed to bother anyone. The Mortal Kombat audience that was relied on in the past was all well and good for the franchise, but you have to remember that times have changed, and we are residing in the era where all these sorts of titles aspire to be and label themselves as so-called service games. Games that keep players returning regularly, with them making new transactions to further increase the game's profitability. Examples of this done expertly apply to cash cows such as GTA 5, and more annoyingly, something like Fortnite. As a qualified school teacher, back in 2017, I constantly had to put up with children talking about this game and mentioning it in all of their schoolwork. They were absolutely obsessed with it and doing their embarrassing little dances all over the playgrounds. Ugh. With Fortnite being a game that didn't and doesn't interest me, I just assumed that like with most other titles, this was just a craze and they'll be bored of it soon and move on. Oh, how wrong was I. As 7 years removed from this period, if you go into a school today, children are still interested in exactly the same games. GTA 5, Fortnite, Minecraft, we haven't moved on at all. So it is no wonder that games like Street Fighter 6 and Mortal Kombat have set out to return to the same well over and over again too. However, looking at the statistics, Mortal Kombat 1 hasn't got the necessary momentum behind it to be a successful service game. As surely, if you have a game of that kind, you need to deliver an actually good, service. Fortnite, for example, is free to play, but then generates a fortune through in-game purchases, with brand new content being added every single week. When it comes to Mortal Kombat 1, on the other hand, in order to even be allowed to play it, gamers are expected to pay full retail price. But, rather insultingly, even prior to launch, a so-called premium edition of the game has been for sale, with a digital version of this title on the PlayStation Store setting back buyers a whopping £89.99. That's a lot of money for any video game. Making this high-end purchase, players gained early access to DLC characters, got an additional 6 fighters, along with 1,250 Dragon Crystals. for in-game currency that is usually purchased using real-world money. If you forked out the money for all of that, you would expect at least within the early months of the game's release to have access to everything that was possibly available from the game. But nope, the title would greedily paywall stuff which even those who paid premium prices would have to pay additional money for if they wanted. Absolutely disgusting.
Pathetic.
It's one thing charging consumers a lot of money for in-game purchases if a title is free to play, but if you've already paid over $100 to play this game, you can see why some fans were insulted when they were asked for even more, as some content would still be locked. So let's cover the content that was paywalled and drove all the controversy. Outrage would quickly spread online after players got left frustrated with the announcement within a month of the game's release that a special Halloween fatality had been created, but if gamers wanted to be able to perform it, they would need to pay up an additional $10 for the pleasure. To rub salt in the wound, with previous Mortal Kombat installments, new fatalities would get added to the game for free, but suddenly the publishers wanted players to pay out more money for a title they had only earlier that same month spent a small fortune on. To say that practices from those who were bringing us Mortal Kombat was disappointing would be an understatement. The uproar this absolute BS generated would at least lead NetherRealm Studios to step in, claiming they appreciated the audience's feedback, with them announcing that those who made this stupid purchase would later get a Thanksgiving and Winter fatality at no extra charge. But the fact that any of this happened in the first place just shows how predatory this American video game brand has become. In terms of the gameplay itself, what can be found in this one, most would agree that beneath all of the fatalities and insultingly priced cosmetics, there is still a very decent fighting game there. Just a fighting game that is not as good as the likes of Street Fighter 6 and Tekken 8. Many have been commenting that the release of Tekken 8 recently is yet another hurdle that Mortal Kombat must overcome to get eyes back on it and get players interested again, but it's currently got a lot of work to do to ever have a chance of catching up with that game or Street Fighter 6 ever again. Perhaps more characters in the future, more features and some balance changes could deliver a change of fortune for this one, but for now, compared to its competitors, no one is playing Mortal Kombat 1. Comment below on what you think will fix this game's fate, and subscribe. Then check out my previous video on Mortal Kombat crazy controversies from over the years and why Street Fighter 6 could be more popular. Yeah, cheerio.